Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai is a series that's actually not about bunny girls. Despite the title clearly being bait to some extent, it doesn't really matter because many people, including myself, consider it to be one of the best stories of all time. Not surprisingly, it will be adapted to an anime based on the light novels, and of course the studio who animated this series will be none other than Cloverworks, which is a studio that is very well known within the anime community. Bunny Girl Senpai follows the story of our main character known as Sakuta, in which him but many of the other characters of this series deals with a syndrome known as Adolescent syndrome, which is a syndrome that usually happens during adolescent ages, in which whoever is affected by Adolescent syndrome deals with a lot of very strange and abnormal things throughout their daily lives, and Sakuta is one of these people. Now of course, this Adolescent syndrome is clearly a representation of the many things that people have to go through during their adolescent years. It's not surprising that many people have had to deal with a lot of things during their time being a teenager. I mean, it's something that is bound to happen because it's considered to be one of the most important times of your life, since during your teenage years you start to actually not only worry about what you're going to do in the future, but you're also worried about the many things that are happening in your life, the constant changes that happen on a daily basis, not to mention the many different experiences and the many different relationships that you build throughout your teenage years. And Bunny Girl Senpai perfectly shows this with its cast of characters, showing that some characters are having struggles, whether it's their confidence, trying to make a better image of themselves, trying to improve themselves, or trying to deal with many things that happened in their past, just to name a few. But in today's video, we'll be talking about one certain character. Even though this series already had a bunch of characters that became very memorable, she was also one of them as well, and her name is Shoko Makinohara. Shoko is a very interesting character because of the many things that happened to not just her character, but the many actions and things she said throughout her entirety of the series. While there were a few things that made Shoko a very mysterious character, and despite her not being shown too much in the anime, it was made very clear there was more to her than meets the eye, and that would be exactly the case when she was pretty much the focus in the Bunny Girl Senpai movie titled Rascal Does Not Dream of a Dreaming Girl, a movie that came out after the anime. And for those who are wondering, yes, this is canon, as this is a continuation of the anime since the movie adapted the light novels volumes 6 and 7. And in this movie, we not only find out more about her character, but we also see why she's such a great character overall. But before we talk about the events that happen in the movie, let's first talk about who is Shoko in general. Shoko is a girl that actually does have some history with Sakuta. Not only was she the one that actually helped him during his time of need when he was dealing with his adolescent syndrome, but he also helped out his sister as well that was also facing her own adolescent syndrome, which showed just how caring and compassionate she was towards others. Not to mention that she was actually the first girl that Sakuta had any romantic feelings for. But of course, that didn't mean that she didn't have any problems whatsoever. We will come to find out that at a young age she was dealing with a heart disease, and it was very clear that she was having a lot of health issues because of it. And during 4th grade, when her class was assigned to write down what they plan on doing in the future or what's their future plans, Shoko did not really know what to write because she herself didn't know if it was possible for her to write plans for the future because of her heart disease. Now, going back to the movie, this is where we get to see Shoko as a character shine the most. It was during this movie that we see Sakuta seeming to have a very enjoyable life at the moment. Not only was his adolescent syndrome taken care of, but also his sisters as well. Not to mention that he's already in a very loving relationship with another character that goes by the name of Mai. And this isn't entirely surprising because throughout the anime we actually saw just how Sakuta and Mai were made for each other and really just how special their relationship was. But of course, this peaceful time wouldn't last long as Shoko will reappear once again, being part of Sakuta's life once again. Now of course, for Sakuta this is a big shock because it's been a while since he's seen Shoko. Not to mention just how awkward it is to have the first girl that you had a crush on in the same room as your actual girlfriend. Funny, but I can imagine that anybody in this scenario will be completely at a loss for words. But there's actually a reason as to why Shoko reappeared once again, and we will come to find out there's actually two different versions of Shoko. One was from when she was in middle school, and the other one is when Shoko is an adult. This is actually the version that actually helped Sakuta deal with his adolescent syndrome. This is where Sakuta finds out that the middle school version of Shoko is suffering from a heart disease and requires a heart transplant to save her life. This will lead to Sakuta and Mai trying to come up with a way to save middle school Shoko's life from this heart disease. And of course, they were able to put the pieces together that the adult version of Shoko is from the future in which she was able to successfully have a heart transplant, indicating that Shoko's adolescent syndrome has something to do with time travel. But it will be revealed that the person who gave future Shoko the heart transplant to save her life was Sakuta himself, in which it seems that in that timeline, Sakuta was involved in the fatal traffic accident which resulted in his death. This will lead to the future Shoko time traveling to try to save Sakuta because Sakuta is somebody that she cares for deeply. But this would create conflict as Sakuta is unsure what he should do and what is the best action that he should take in this situation. And for a moment, he actually thinks of sacrificing himself in order for Shoko to live. This of course leads to a very heart-wrenching moment between Mai and Sakuta, in which you can see that Mai really does care about him and doesn't want him to treat his life like it's nothing. While she does understand the circumstances and why he plans on sacrificing himself, in these moments she does admit that without him in her life, she really doesn't have anything going in her life that will make her want to keep going forward. This makes Sakuta rethink his decisions and wonders once again what is the best decision to do in this situation. And he actually does have another moment between him and Shoko in which he expresses that while he does want to help her, he also doesn't want to make Mai sad, because the last thing he wants is to see the girl he loves crying. And while Shoko does understand, she also gives him a last chance, giving him a location that she's going to be at, telling him that if he does happen to change his mind, then she is going to be at that location. But Sakuta comes to the realization that what if this is just simply what she was expecting from the very beginning. She knew that no matter what she did or what she said to Sakuta, Sakuta was going to choose Mai over her. And that is something that of course angers but also makes Sakuta very sad, which just shows just how really conflicted he is till the very end. While he doesn't want to sacrifice himself because of what he saw with Mai crying right in front of him, he also at the same time feels like it's something that he has to do in order to save Shoko's life. But at the end of the day, it would seem that Shoko knew from the very beginning that Mai was going to be the person that Sakuta would choose over her. So she chose her location to not only avoid him but to keep him safe from him. But this of course backfires when Sakuta last minute tries to go to the location that she's at so that he could save her. But of course, due to him trying so desperately to be at this location, that he is not paying attention to the things that are happening around him, which leads to him almost getting run over by a car. But out of nowhere, someone jumps in to save him, and that is his girlfriend Mai. But of course, this leads to even more tragedy and more heartbreak, because following this terrible accident, Mai is not only pronounced dead, but we just see how Mai's death has made Sakuta completely broken. And there's this very sad moment in which we see Sakuta just walking mindlessly in a cloudy day, still being shocked, broken, and confused as to the events that happened. It's very clear that Sakuta still hasn't processed everything, and he's still trying to figure out why did this all happen. And when he reaches at the beach, he pleads towards the sky to bring Mai back, which once again just shows just how much Mai meant to him and how without her, his life is completely broken. This is something that is very hard to witness for some people, because for some people, this is exactly how they probably felt when they lost somebody that they cared for and loved, somebody that really meant to them and was a part of their life, now completely gone. And it's very understandable why Sakuta was reacting like this, because anybody who has lost somebody they cared for would probably react the same way that Sakuta was reacting. But this is not where things would end, as eventually Shoko would appear once again, telling Sakuta that she is going to help him by telling him that with her help he can actually go back to time himself and prevent Mai from dying and rewrite history. The only problem is that by her doing this, she is making a sacrifice on herself, in which because if she helps Sakuta do this, she will disappear forever. And while of course Sakuta is hesitant at first, he ultimately decides that this is the best course of action and lets Shoko help him one last time. So Sakuta, when he's going back in time, tries to find a way to save Mai from the terrible tragedy that is about to happen. And while we come to find out that in reality the reason why Mai was there to stop Sakuta was because in reality she was there to sacrifice herself so that Sakuta can live his life, this will ultimately not happen because Sakuta prevented her from doing that action. But they both come to the realization that because they both survived, that will mean that there will be nobody to give Shoko the heart transplant. However, despite realizing that this is the outcome that's probably for the best of them, they try to come up with another method to save Shoko's life without any of them dying. But at the same time, they also realize that if they help Shoko and together they do save her life, then that will mean they will sacrifice the relationship, as is probably going to be a case in which they're probably never going to remember each other and everything that they have done together will all be completely erased. But despite this outcome probably happening, they still vow that one day, if this outcome were to happen, they would just simply fall in love with each other once again. So they decide to go and meet the young Shoko, but this is where we get the twist in which it seems that the young Shoko knew what their actions were and knew that they were planning on doing something to save her, sacrificing their happiness just so that she can live. And this is where we get revealed that Shoko is going to create a future in which both Sakuta and Mai never meet Shoko to begin with, which just makes it very clear that no matter what decision, what action Sakuta and Mai make, not everybody is going to survive. Not everyone is going to have the happy ending that they want, and they both realize this, so they ultimately decide to let Shoko do what she has to do. And of course Shoko would do just that. She will make sure that her existence is something that both Mai and Sakuta never remember. And of course, while this was her decision, this is something that was even hard for Shoko, as this will mean that she is never going to meet the people that truly did care about her and that she cared for in return. In this new timeline, Mai and Sakuta are still doing their everyday to-day lives and they're still in a very great relationship. However, the one thing is, of course, obviously, is that they have no recollection of who Shoko is. However, one day as they are walking next to the beach, they see a girl that Sakuta seems to vaguely remember. Mai asks him if he has seen this girl somewhere before, in which at first Sakuta says no. But thanks to the memory pieces crossing different timelines, Sakuta and Shoko are able to recognize each other once again, and that is how the movie ends, with Shoko pretty much having a happy ending in the end, as she's able to remember the person that she values the most. So overall, like I stated very earlier, in the anime we didn't really get a lot of screen time with Shoko, meaning that we didn't get to see her full character development. But in this movie, it really did show us why Shoko was such a not only important character to this series, but why she was a very likable character from the very beginning. We see a girl who had a lot of hardships in her life, that even despite all that, she was still caring about other people. She was still trying to help other people's problems, putting them first and putting herself second. That is the type of person that Shoko was. She was able to help Sakuta during his struggles, and in that one timeline when she discovers that her heart transplant was made because of Sakuta's unfortunate end in a traffic accident, she decided to go back in time to try to prevent that from happening, because she was willing to sacrifice her own well-being in order to save the person that means a lot to her. When she realized that Sakuta was going to sacrifice himself for her, but in return that would mean he would destroy his relationship with the girl he loves, she made sure to try to make him not choose that action and tried to make sure that she was not chosen and that he chose Mai over her. And when she saw that tragedy still struck, in which instead of Sakuta being the one to pass away, it was Mai, she ultimately decided to help Sakuta out and to trying to prevent Mai's death from happening, even if it meant that she was going to disappear forever. It's all these factors that really made Shoko such a very likable character, and a character that you appreciate seeing and you wanted her to have a happy ending. And while it may seem at first in the end that wasn't going to happen, because she would sacrifice herself once again, this time erasing any memories between her, Sakuta, and Mai, she did get a happy happy ending overall. She was not only healthy, meaning that she no longer had a heart disease, but in the very end, in the last few moments between her and Sakuta was able to recognize her once again, and that meant a lot to Shoko, which is why she was so happy in the last scene, because she realized that she was never forgotten. While the chances of Sakuta remembering Shoko despite his memories being erased were very low, it was great seeing Sakuta remember Shoko, because that means all the hardships, all the sadness, and all the suffering everyone had to go through in this entire situation all paid off, because now everyone's able to enjoy their lives once again. And that's what really makes Shoko's character really beautiful to see. And that's where I'm going to end today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.